Friends, how are you doing? This is Zed from Zed Outdoors and I hope you're having an awesome day. So I have completed one side. Let me show you what I've done so far. So if you recall last time, I just put it loosely into place to see how it fit. And obviously the tops were not trimmed and the sides were a little bit gnarly, as you can see. So what I've done so far is I've marked off the tops using a timber crayon, which I'll show you in a second. And then I used a billhook to trim up the sides. Okay, so it doesn't look pretty, but it's allowed it to sit a lot more flush. Now what's happened is, obviously this is still fitted in loose. What's going to happen is across here where the string is, I'm going to put a permanent beam, similar to how I've done on the outside. Then once the beam is in place, so imagine this white cord is the beam, what I'm going to do is stuff little bits of wood in there to kind of press up against it. Because you're working with natural wood, it's a regular shape, it's kind of bendy, it's a little bit kind of, it's not like a perfect processed bit of timber you get from your local store, DIY store. So it's still pretty good, but once the kind of permanent beam is in place, like I said, what I'll do is I'll just put in bits of wood. It will kind of allow these to sit flush up against the wall and then hopefully not move. So a big part of working on this project is for me to use it as an excuse to try different techniques out and try different things out. So to mark it off, obviously I could have used anything, a pencil, an awl, whatever. But in the process of trying something different, I gave this a go. This is a lumber crayon. And I've seen this being used by people who work with natural timber, a little bit like what I'm doing, but obviously these are more professional people. And obviously I guess you can probably use a normal crayon, but this is specifically for timber, so it's lead free, it's obviously larger than a typical crayon, and they're pretty cheap to buy anyway. So I bought like a little pack of these off eBay, I think I bought these from. And these are pretty good. You get them in all different types of colours. So obviously different colours will stand out on wood. So I tried the red. The red was okay. It wasn't too bad. I want to try the blue one. I know a couple of the guys that I know personally use the blue colour. So I want to give that a try too. But it was cool to kind of give that a go in terms of marking the tops of the woods for trimming them off. Now once I trimmed up the tops and make them roughly level, the next goal was to obviously trim up the sides. There were little gnarly bits and bobs poking out. Now obviously I can use my axe, right? But obviously once again I wanted an excuse to use something different. So I used this beast over here. And this, my friends, if you haven't seen it before, is a billhook. This particular one's got a hickory handle. Now billhooks have been used traditionally in the UK, I know specifically, for hundreds of years. It's been used by people who do hedge laying, fence making, etc. And don't worry if you're not familiar with what I just said, like hedge laying and so forth. I will be doing videos in the future covering those topics. There's a long tradition in the UK of kind of, of those things. And traditionally what those guys use is a billhook. So it's got obviously the round tip at the edge to kind of like to take off the gnarly bits, you know, the knots. And what you find all across the UK, there are literally hundreds of styles of these. They vary, you know, area to area, all shapes and sizes, you know, all different kind of like bits and bobs coming off to do different things. This particular one I bought online, and this is a really cheap one that I bought. And obviously being online, I couldn't see kind of up close and personal what it was like. Now, a couple of things with this that I found while using it is the handle is a little bit slippery. It hasn't got a good grip on the handle. So I'm probably gonna have to sand that down to kind of give it a better grip. Also, it's quite top heavy. You know, so in terms of using it, it was really kind of like a bit of a struggle to get into it. I have seen loads of these at kind of woodworking events that I go to. So the next time I go to a woodworking event, I have a bit of a better idea now in terms of what I'm looking for, because I spent time now with a couple of guys that really know how to use this. They're professionals. So the more I kind of see them using it, the more I know that, okay, when I go ahead and go and buy my one, obviously I want one which obviously is not as top heavy, has got a better grip on the handle, you know. And yeah, just get that refurbisher up and give that a go. But so far it's been quite a pleasure to use this. Obviously, like I said, you can use an axe, right? Using an axe is not a problem. But I just wanted an excuse to use a different tool. But when you work with people who do forestry work, woodland work, especially here in the UK, this is pretty much a staple of what they use. So, the billhook. So now that I've completed one side, I've got to do the other two. So, let's crack on. So, all done. All the tops have been trimmed and all the sides have been cleaned up as much as possible. And obviously it looks a bit rickety at the moment. That's because we haven't put the permanent beams in. So obviously the next step now is to put the permanent beams in across. And once the beams are in, then obviously I can align these properly and clean these up. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm knackered. That was really, really tough going. I didn't bother showing the entire thing. Obviously you get the gist of what I'm doing here. Look at that. Calluses, people. I can show off now that I've been doing a hard day's work, but we're not even done yet. We're only halfway through. Got to finish the rest off. It's really hot weather we're having in the UK at the moment. Absolutely blistering. I know in the US as well, at the same time you guys are having a heat wave too. Not that I'm complaining, but it really drains it out of you. It's quite humid in this woodland, and I'm getting absolutely kamikaze attacked by the mosquitoes. I think they fancy a bit of Indian flavour, that's what they want. So, going to take a quick little break now, and then get cracking with the beams, and hopefully finish the sides off of the shelter. So I'm drinking this Lucozade Sport. I don't normally drink this stuff, but at the moment it's so hot in the UK. I've been drinking lots and lots of water, but I find when you're doing a lot of physical activity, you need some, I don't know, bit of sweetness to it, you know. So I don't normally drink this stuff, but recently I find in this heat wave, which is abnormal for the UK, what we're having at the moment, not that I'm complaining, yeah, I find this one really ticks the bill. So, what we've got on the menu today. Now I'm not actually doing any cooking, simply because A, it's too hot, and B, I want to really utilise the day to kind of get this finished off. Obviously once the camp is set up, I'll be cooking all the time. So I've actually got some pre-prepared food. And here we've got pasta. So I made, it's quite simple actually, so I've got gluten-free pasta. Because of an illness last year, I had to cut down quite significantly on the gluten intake. So I've got that mixed with pesto, olive oil, sun-dried tomato, and some peanuts, as you do. I don't know if I'm the only one that puts peanuts in the pasta, but I think it gives it that extra texture with the crunchiness. Also, this is quite light as well. I find, especially in this heat, once again, I know for my sake, when I'm eating something too heavy, afterwards I feel immediately really sluggish, and I want to take like a 2-hour power nap or something. So with this one, it's lightweight, you know, it will get absorbed quite quickly, and fuel me up hopefully, man, for the rest of this build and get this finished off. So I want to enjoy this, and I'll see you guys in a second. Go on, mate. You can go first. You going? Still making your mind up. That's it. Right. So here's where I'm at with putting these cross beams. Now you have to remember with these cross beams that are on the inside, they're not structural, they're literally just to keep the uprights here upright. And I ended up having to just move these while I was chiseling. I've put them in order, simply because when I was chiseling they were falling about all over the place and it was getting a bit dangerous and putting some stress on this cordage, which is obviously temporary. So yeah, move those. I've used a chisel and obviously put a recess into this pillar here, and I've done the same over here too, a recess. Now as I was doing that, I realised I had a moment of inspiration. Now what I was going to do was actually put thin dowels here, so use my bit and brace, put a hole in there, put a peg in there, and do the same in here. But I had a moment of inspiration as I was doing this. So obviously this is the crossbeam that's going to go in, so this is wedged as much as it can on that side. So what is my inspiration, you ask? I realise that actually I can just carve a wedge and I can just put it into here, and that's it. You know, it should be a tight enough wedge. This is not going to go anywhere, you know, and the beauty with that is I can just obviously take the wedge out if I need to, in order to kind of, you know, play around with the side wall. But that's what I'm going to give a go. Obviously if I have to put in dowels, then I'll do that. But otherwise, yeah, that's my moment of inspiration. So I do that, and then when the side pieces go in, because they're kind of all different shapes, what I'm going to do is just pack things into here, okay, just to kind of keep that tension there. So the point is you're just kind of keeping the side walls completely upright and not moving. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this cross beam off, I'm going to put these pieces back with the cordage holding them in place, and then I'm going to put this cross beam back, and then I'm going to wedge it in and see how that holds up, and then put the packing in. So all the recesses are chiseled out now along all the sides. I've cut up the pieces to go in there. So let's get all the side pieces back on. Let's get the support beams on, and then let's get the wedges wedged in. Last support beam going in, people. Wish me luck. Well, I think we're there. Right, the moment of truth now. The wedge of truth. About to give my shoulder a wedgie. Right, let's do this. Don't let me down. Don't let me down! Oh, 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 got it. Because the wood's not straight, right? It's always a nightmare doing things like this. But you know what? Look at that! Look at that! Now the real moment of truth. I've got to take all the cordage off. Oh man, proper nerve-wracking. Okay friends, the moment of truth, the last screw for freedom. Sounded really wrong with that. Oh, right, let's do this. And it has to be the most awkward one with this piece of wood in the way. Right, let's give this a try. Almost there. Cut out, last couple of turns, last turn. That's it, people. Look at that, man. The shelter has not fallen yet. Come next time, it's going to be like a pile of matchsticks on the floor. Look at that, man. I'm well proud. So, let me pick this cordage up off the floor and I'll give you a quick tour around to see where we're at. So here we have all the cordage taken off. And as you can see this side, because you're working with natural wood, it's really, really tricky. So, to get everything perfectly aligned, but all of these are aligned, but as you can see there's a gap here, and that is because this front pillar here is curved. It's kind of going off to the left, but I've filled that bit up, got some wood left over. The back has come out pretty decent. Once again, a little bit of tinkering around, we get that full out. As you can see there's one little gap there. I'll fill that up with another bit of wood, and this side is actually looking pretty decent. So technically the sides are all done. So what is the next step? Now you see the back wall here. Here's the situation with the wall. A lot of the wind that's prevailing through this woodland is actually coming from behind and it's coming through. That's because you have farmers' fields that are open fields over there. So in essence, the only prevailing wind you get is actually from the back wall. The side walls are actually okay. So thinking ahead, obviously for the colder months, here's what I'm considering and I want to know your thoughts. So I want to patch up the back wall. As you can see, obviously there are gaps in there. So it turns out that there is clay in this woodland. I didn't know that, so the owners told me that there's clay in this woodland. It's about 2 or 3 feet deep. So there's a bit of digging I've got to do, but there is clay here. So what I'm giving serious consideration for is to do wattle and daub, the wattle and daub technique. So essentially this chestnut is acting as the wattle, as a support structure, and the daub is obviously the clay mixture that you fill up the gaps with. And this is what I'm going to attempt to do. So it's not about getting a completely, perfectly clean flat wall. You're not going to get that on this. But typically with the wattle, they use hazel weaving. So obviously this is a much cruder way of doing that. So what I'm going to attempt to do is basically do a cruder version where essentially I'm just filling up the gaps. And I may just have to make it a little bit watery. So in essence, you're kind of just slapping it on. I've seen a lot of videos. I've never done it before. I've not even seen it being done in person before. I've just watched videos and read a couple of articles. But I have seen people who do know what they're doing, essentially just kind of slapping it on and then doing the final layer with their hands, smoothing it off. So I'm giving it some thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. If you've done it before, give me some tips and ideas, anything that I can use. I have done quite a bit of research on it. So obviously it'll all be testing, as is everything with this structure. It's all kind of testing and all learning new skills. So potentially, not 100%, but potentially I may consider doing the wattle and daub on the back wall on my next visit down. And then after that, once the potential wattle and daub is done on the back wall, then I'm going to start building the bunk bed, as you do. So thankfully I've got all the materials thanks to a buddy of mine, Chris Kaler, So huge thanks to him, and that is basically it. So hopefully now powering ahead with the rest of this build. So I appreciate you sticking with me throughout this video and throughout this build. Look forward to seeing you on the next aspects of this build and this next video. And as always, I hope whatever you're doing, you have a blessed day, a blessed week ahead. This is Ed from Zed Outdoors. Peace out.